Every political issue will be soon a climate change issue. HorganJan 16 minutes. Read Greta Thunberg. Photo, Pacific Press, Getty Images. It didn't take long for Donald Trump to notice he was not named Time magazine's Person of the Year for 2019. So ridiculous, Trump tweeted shortly after Time revealed 16-year-old climate change activist Greta Thunberg is its choice. Greta must work on her anger management problem, then go to a good old-fashioned movie with a friend. Chill Greta, chill. Later a fan account, called the Trump War Room, posted an altered version of the Time cover. The front page photo still featured Thunberg, but only her body. The image was edited to have her head replaced by Trump's. This wasn't the first time Trump featured on a fake Time magazine cover. In 2017, The Washington Post reported that a fake Time magazine cover featuring Trump was framed and hung at as many as 5 of his Gulf properties. It was, in fairness, a convincing forgery. Part of what made it believable is that uncharacteristically, it wasn't all about Trump. Other headlines took up the phony cover, allowing it to straddle both the real world and Trump's alternate reality. One of those headlines, Global Warming, A New Age of Extinction, that article was real. In a world where hundreds of millions of human beings still go hungry and the global recession has left all but the wealthiest fearing for their future, it's easy to wonder why we should be concerned about the dwindling of the planet's biodiversity. Brian Walsh wrote from Madagascar in 2009. The answer is that we can't afford not to. The substance of that argument hasn't changed in the last decade, only its urgency. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing, Thunberg told the United Nations in September. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? Yet, as an election looms in 2020, money and fairy tales about economic growth are still most likely motivating voters, not climate change. But things are changing. It's almost inevitable that this will be the last election where climate change is not the top issue at the ballot box. In November, polling firm ImagesIt hosted a focus group of swing voters in Youngstown, Ohio. A few of them supported Thunberg, but also said she shouldn't be the face of the global climate movement. You have to win hearts and minds, one man said. It's as much marketing as it is education. In this kind of argument, where you have people say it's a hoax and people who say the world is coming to an end, you have to be able to persuade, and yet it seems Thunberg has been persuasive. She's inspired millions of people to march in climate protests across the planet. Her success is no doubt partly due to her being so young, so firm, and so committed to her cause, and she deserves the accolades she has received. At the same time, Thunberg appears to be pushing against an open door, globally and in the United States. A full 62% of Americans think humans are causing global warming. In other words, people are changing their minds. Earlier in the year, Pew Research showed that the number of people in the United States who said that climate change was a major threat to the country rose from 40% in 2013 to 59% in 2018. Earlier this year, the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication reported that 73% of Americans think climate change is happening, up from 63% in 2015. A full 62% of Americans think humans are causing global warming. In other words, people are changing their minds. In 2011, 2012, and 2015, the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication asked people whether in the preceding year or two they'd changed their opinion on global warming. Of those who did, 84% had grown more concerned about it, including 89% of self-identified Republicans. Despite the ongoing blind fealty Republicans in Washington, D.C. pay to Trump, his decisions to remove the United States from the Paris Climate Accord, or to roll back offshore drilling regulations, or to allow for more logging on federal lands, may start to play badly within his party, particularly with its youth wing. This year, Pew found that younger Republicans are more likely to support climate-conscious policies. they're less likely to support expanding coal mining than their older GOP peers, and more likely to support expanding solar farms. Millennial Republicans are also more likely than older Republicans to say that climate change is having at least some effect on their community. All of which is simply to say that, whether or not people like Thunberg is the messenger, her idea that climate change is a current and growing issue is resonating. People are seeing climate change. They believe it. Every year, we witness how climate change exacerbates problems and intensifies disasters. That goes as much for Californians fighting wildfires, Floridians in the path of hurricanes, or Nebraskans preparing for the next great flood, as it does the U.S. military preparing for new threats. It goes for people living wherever extreme weather events that used to occur once every generation are now happening once every few years. In other words, everyone. And we may already be able to see this reality having an effect on votes. The Yale program I mentioned earlier tracks public opinion on climate questions down to the county level, aligning its 2019 map of districts where people are more likely to agree that climate change will affect them personally. With the 2016 election results map, there is a striking synergy between those areas where climate change has already had an effect, the coasts, but also down the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, and areas that voted Democrat, the only party on the presidential ballot that year with any discernible climate policy. If that doesn't surprise you, then you might already see how, as climate change begins to affect more of America, environmental concerns, currently about halfway down the list of voters' top political issues, might continue to gain influence at the ballot box. Maybe your mind doesn't need changing. But maybe that doesn't convince you, yet. Maybe you think there are other factors at play to explain that mapping alignment. Climate change is a problem, sure, but other issues like the economy, jobs, or immigration are more important and are really what people vote on. That's fine, for now. But, before too long, it will become clear that these are all one and the same thing. At some point, likely soon, you'll change your mind, too. Climate change, David Wallace Wells writes in The Uninhabitable Earth, is not merely one challenge among many facing a planet already struggling with civil strife and war and horrifying inequality and far too many other insoluble hardships to iterate, but the all-encompassing stage on which all those challenges will be met, a whole sphere, in other words, which literally contains within it all of the world's future problems and all of its possible solutions. Trump would likely prefer the 2020 election not be about climate change. Despite Democrats' attempts to make it otherwise, he may get his wish. Climate change isn't likely to be the deciding question of this election. This is probably the last time. Eventually we'll all realize what Trump could have known if he'd studied his fake time cover for long enough. That is, we can dismiss or ignore climate change for a while, or relegate it to being a footnote on reality, something that doesn't deserve attention. But those days are numbered. Soon enough, we'll have to face it. And, at that point, we'll realize it defines us. Let's block ads.